Now, and a very warm welcome to Matchpoint here on CCTV Africa, the program that brings you African sports news, features, action, and highlights from the continent and beyond. I'm Maher Mutwa, also coming up this half hour. Former FIFA Executive Committee member Amos Adamu speaks to Matchpoint on his ban and the latest investigation. And South Africa's BMX rider Kyle Dodd sets his sights on Rio 2016 Olympic qualification. Well, we'll get to the rugby in just a bit, but we begin in South Africa, and the sport of fives football is beginning to take root in Cape Town in a very big way. The sport was born out of the hype that surrounded the hosting of the 2010 World Cup, but it has since grown into a sport dedicated with its own dedicated following, leagues and purpose-built facilities. As CCTV's Travers Andrews explains, it's quick and easy to get hooked.
It's fast, it's easy, and fun. That's what players are calling the popular fives football game that has Cape Townians of all shapes and sizes owning their skills on the pitch. The teams consist of just 5 players who challenge each other inside a purpose-built synthetic pitch. The craze became extremely popular when the country first hosted football's most illustrious game.
Yeah, so there's no doubt that this has exploded since the World Cup, and it's really ridden that wave. Since 2010, we've actually grown from 1 venue up to 6 in the Western Cape. We're about to build our first one in Pretoria and then Joburg. In the UK, 5-a-side football is incredibly popular. It's actually overtaken conventional 11-a-side soccer, and we expect that to happen here very soon also.
The facilities are spread out throughout the city and consist of a number of leagues that compete daily to move up the ranks. At this newest facility, which is built on top of a high-rise building, the numbers are growing by the day. Using innovative spaces like this rooftop has made fives football more accessible to the broader public.
I think this is the way forward. I mean, it's a lot more accessible. You know, conventional football, you always need 22 people and a huge green space and perfect weather and a flat surface, and that's difficult to find in today's day and age. And then the time element also. Whereas this is just you and 4 mates. You can play it anywhere. It's in urban areas. The games are only 40 minutes, so it's a lot more accessible. And like we said, anyone can play it, and that's the beauty of it.
For the players, getting in some game time is quick and simple.
I live just down the road, and it's quick and easy. I mean, we obviously all come into CBD to work, and it's so quick to just pop down here, play a quick game with your mates and with your colleagues, and then head back home for dinner, you know.
It's just great to get together with friends, and it's still quite competitive, and it keeps you really fit. So during the week, after a stressful week or day of work, get together and have a great game of football.
Like the beautiful game, fives football has grown into a platform for players to play out their dreams and enjoy football and the passion that accompanies it, albeit in a very unique way. Travers Andrews, CCTV, Cape Town.
Turning to volleyball now, Egypt's Al Ahly will be Africa's representative at the upcoming FIVB Men's Club World Championship in Brazil. The Red Devils have been intensifying their training in order to prevent another disappointing result, as they lost all their matches the last time they qualified to the competitions. Here now is Adel Mahroui with more.
Al Ahly is one of Africa's top volleyball teams. They have sealed their 11th African Club Championship title this year. The victory gave them a ticket as a representative of the continent in the Men's Club World Championship. Al Ahly has been practicing harder than ever to put a great performance in Brazil.
We had some weaknesses in some positions, and we've supported these weaknesses with new players. We brought in a Brazilian player to the team, and we are thinking of adding another foreign player to the team in position 3. This will be the final touch for the team, then we'll be ready for any competition.
Players have been in condensed training camp for over 2 weeks now. They've engaged in preparations day and night, giving them a strong feeling of confidence.
God willing, we aim to go to the competition and play well, because the group we are is not difficult. Some teams, whether they are from Iran or Argentina, we can face them and win. They're not strong enough to make us afraid. In addition, we have more players joining from the World Military Championship. These players are ready to face tough teams.
Iran and Argentina might not be the strongest teams in the competition, but they've achieved more than Egypt at least. Each has won one bronze medal in previous versions of the Men's Club World Championship. That's the third time Al Ahly qualifies for the competition. Its results in the last two were disappointing. The Red Devils have lost all of their three pool matches both times. So this year, the club aims to at least reach the finals. Adel Mahroui, CCTV, Cairo.
Well, it's time for us to take a short break here on Matchpoint. There's plenty more still to come.
There is a thin line that divides lobbying and corruption.
Former FIFA Executive Committee member Amos Adamu speaks to Matchpoint on his ban and the latest investigation. Right, let's turn our attention now to the intrigue surrounding FIFA. Former Executive Committee member Amos Adamu has been giving his reaction on the decision of the FIFA Ethics Committee, placing him under investigation for what the committee calls suspicion of infringement on Wednesday. Adamu was banned from all footballing activities for 3 years in 2010 after he was found guilty of soliciting bribes for votes for World Cup hosting rights. Our correspondent Deji Badmus caught up with Adamu in Lagos for a chat.
Dr. Amos Adamu, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak with you on CCTV. On Wednesday, October the 21st, FIFA Ethics Committee announced that it was placing you under investigation for alleged suspected infringement. What exactly was your initial reaction when you got that announcement?
Well, I didn't have any reaction because they have not gotten to me. So I will only react when they get back to me and they tell me what they are investigating. And I'm waiting for that. When I see the letter or the communication, then I can react to it.
So you're basically saying you have not been told what your offense is?
No, they have not told me. They have not told me. I suppose that the first issue that we had, they should have looked at everything, because this is almost about 5 years after it, and if they have any issue on that issue, I'm waiting to see it.
Let's talk about what looks like a cleansing, a total cleansing going on in FIFA at the moment. Sepp Blatter is under suspension, Michel Platini is also under suspension. What's your take?
If it continues like that, I'm sure most people that are in FIFA will have to go because they sort of don't. You see, when you are talking about corruption and the way it is in football, for instance, there is a thin line, especially when it comes to bidding for World Cup or competing for what. There is a thin line that divides lobbying and corruption. Take for instance, in any issue, when people are bidding for a thing, they will come to you in election generally. If you vote for us, we do this thing for you. If you do vote for us, we do this. I want you to vote for me so that I will be able to maybe give you pitches, give you so. If you say that is corruption, then I wonder who will be left out of not corruption.
Now, we know you're campaigning for an African to be the president of FIFA, and that's the former governor of Abia State, Ojo Zakalo, who is running for the FIFA top job. You've been campaigning for him. As a matter of fact, you've been leading his campaign. Do you think this is the right time for an African to be president of FIFA? You think an African stands a chance?
Well, not do I think, but I know. The people that have been there, let's say the Europeans, do they have two heads? They have one head. We have one head. And when you come to playing football, who plays football? If you go to Europe, most of their players are black, are Africans. Nigeria, for instance, why I support Oji Zakalu is simple. If the position of FIFA president is vacant, Nigeria has paid his dues. Nigeria can contest for that position. Nigeria has been in World Cup, FIFA World Cup, men and women. Nigeria has won so many FIFA World Cups in the age categories. So who's more qualified to be there? That means we are a football playing nation. And if a Nigerian comes there, yes, I support Oji Zakalu because by my own information available to me, he has the wherewithal to campaign. He's not a poor person that will not be able to go around and campaign. He has also encouraged a team in Nigeria. For the first time, we won the CAF Champions Club back-to-back. And since he left, being governor, we have not won it before. So he has interest, he's able to contribute, and he is able to motivate players to achieve.
Right now, let's turn to the big news of the day, the Rugby World Cup, where New Zealand overturned a 5-point deficit to overturn their rivals South Africa 20-18 in a thrilling semi-final at Twickenham this evening. New Zealand flanker Jerome Kaino got the scoring underway with the opening try of the match, but the Springboks looked to be heading for an upset against the highly favoured All Blacks in the first half. Fly half Andre Pollard landed 4 penalties from 4 attempts to put the Springboks 12-7 up at half-time, but the defending champions took control in the second half through Dan Carter's kicking. Replacement Bowden Barrett put the Kiwis ahead with a try 5 minutes after the restart as Carter made the sideline conversion. He also landed a drop goal and 2 penalties to finish with 10 points for the match. The All Blacks will play either Australia or Argentina in next weekend's decider as they bid to become the first nation to win back-to-back titles at the Rugby World Cup. Well, now joining us for further discussion on that semi-final is a man who's no stranger to the sport, rugby commentator Hilary Itela. He joins us here in Nairobi in our studios. Hilary, obviously New Zealand through to the finals of the tournament after that match. Fully deserved for them?
Indeed, New Zealand were actually highly favoured to make it into the final. They did actually have a very torrid time in the pool stages. Argentina gave them a very torrid time in the pool stages, and everyone had actually anticipated that France last weekend would put them to the cosh, but like typical world defending champions, they went and dispatched the French in typical fashion. The Springboks had been favoured to come around and just perhaps ensure that the New Zealanders would have a bit of a torrid time. If you look at the history between New Zealand and South Africa, in the last 3 times they've met in the World Cup, the South Africans had the advantage. In 1995, winning the final against the New Zealanders in the extra time period. In 1999, winning the 3rd place playoff. But the New Zealanders definitely looked like they were they really had a lot more of, perhaps what you term ghosts of the past to try and settle. They came on through, and right now it stands 2-2. But more importantly, New Zealand, against perhaps what would probably be termed the toughest edge, managed to make it to the final team, and they actually expect to meet against Australia or Argentina. We'll actually find out the winner of that game tomorrow.
Now, Hilary, obviously you're kitted out in South African colours. They seemed to have a glimmer of hope to possibly edge their opponents, who, by the way, their coach called the best team in world rugby ever after the first half. What went wrong for the Springboks?
I think the biggest issue that the Springboks perhaps did not actually go around and counter was the fact that everything was working well for them very well in the line-out. Having ensured that the lineups were working very well, bringing in Victor Matfield, who's a veteran player, has a lot of strips and stars for the South African national team, and bringing out the number 5, who had actually played very well, Lou Deyaga, that was actually a changing point. And of course, also losing their flyer, 100 Pollard, bringing in Patrick Lambie. 100 Pollard that actually not missed any kick up until the time he was pushed on out. The New Zealand got to give them credit. They actually seem to have an ability that most teams don't seem to have. They've actually got a cover man for man. You actually knock up a center, you actually bring out Conrad Smith, they bring in Sonny Bill Williams, he actually acts like nothing actually happened. You knock off 100 Pollard, you bring in Patrick Lambie, not the same level of effect, and more importantly, you bring out someone as important as in New Zealand number 14, who has really been playing very, very well. You bring in someone to the same level, Buden Barrett scores a try, they move on through. It shows a level of depth. Now, New Zealand is a very interesting team. They only have 3 million people in the entire country. That's more or less the number of people you actually have in a very, very small city like Nairobi. And if a team like that can actually have that level of continuity, you tend to actually shudder, or rather, go around and start wetting your lips if you're a New Zealand fan as to the prospects that will be next weekend when they meet the winner of Australia and Argentina.
And talking about that match, tomorrow is the other semi-final. What's likely to happen when the tournament's dark horses, let's say Argentina's Pumas, meet Australia's Wallabies?
To be very honest, the Argentinians have not actually made it the semi-final the first time. This is actually the 3rd time in the semi-final. The one thing that they'll need to actually be very, very wary of is the fact that in as much as Australia dispatched Scotland last weekend, they did that without the services of Michael Hooper and Israel Folau. Now, Israel Folau, by any standards, is the best number 15 in the world. Now, you actually go around and get a team that is actually playing with the best number 15 in the world. Someone would have actually turned up for New Zealand, but opted to turn up for Australia. Now, that's a different prospect. But the Argentines, to be very honest, they've made it to the semi-final. Their participation in the Rugby Championship, and more importantly, the fact that they'll actually be next year's Super 15 tournament in the Southern Hemisphere, give them a chance to actually consolidate that. I don't think Australia actually have a very easy time against the Argentines, and I'm pretty certain that the Argentines will go around and literally throw what you'd probably term the kitchen sink to the Australian Wallabies. And let me tell you, any rugby romanticists will be hoping for an Argentinian win.
All right. Finally, obviously, there was a lot of interest surrounding this game. This was the match that they called the final before the final. Many countries in Africa were keenly following the tie, including Kenya, where you were watching the match. What was the reaction from the fans where you were watching?
I think a little bit more of the tension may have actually been felt in the pool stages. After Japan defeated South Africa, there was actually a chance that Japan would have probably been one of the teams alongside Scotland to qualify to the quarterfinal. Now, what that would have actually effectively made is that South Africa, not having finished 3rd or 4th, would have been one of the teams in the Rugby World Cup qualifiers for 2019. You did actually hear before the World Cup that Japan had a couple of issues hosting, and South Africa had actually been considered as one of the teams that would be a standby team to host that Rugby World Cup in 2019. All that was actually sorted out. Japan was confirmed as the host for 2019. And the only thing that perhaps would have actually been a complication for Kenya is if South Africa would not have made it as some of the top 3 teams and not have actually earned a chance to automatically qualify. So, yes, it was actually very, very tough. In as much as a deep African person deep in your heart, everyone was actually looking for South Africa to go around and actually get into the final. To be very honest, New Zealand has actually shown a lot more form, and the fact that South Africa managed to finish top of that pool allows Kenya, Namibia, and other African teams to perhaps, go around and dream of a chance of making to the 2019 World Cup that will be held in Japan.
All right, Hilary, thank you very much for that analysis. Congratulations to you and all Springboks fans this evening as New Zealand go through to the Rugby World Cup final. That was rugby commentator Hilary Itela joining us in our studios here in Nairobi. Well, meanwhile, in reaching their 2nd ever World Cup semi-final, Argentina have turned out to be one of the tournament's surprise packages, and if they are going to continue to shock the world and their own fans back home, they must win the breakdown battle with the world-class Australian back row in their Rugby World Cup semi-final on Sunday. Australia have arguably the world's best back row, whose ability to win turnovers was particularly important in their pool victories over England and Wales. Argentina are on the brink of a historic and surprising achievement, meanwhile, reaching their 1st ever World Cup final. Well, it's time for us to take another short break here on Match Point, still to come. South Africa's BMX rider Kyle Dodd sets his sights on Rio 2016 Olympic qualification. Welcome back. Now, the Olympic Games are looming large, and for many athletes across the continent, qualifying for the showpiece in Brazil is on their minds, including BMX rider Kyle Dodd, who is within touching distance of reaching the event in 2016. The talented rider is focused and raring to go, and to prove that he belongs at the Olympic Games, as CS du Plessis now reports.
Kyle Dodd loves to ride his bike. The 21-year-old BMX rider has been riding for almost 18 years and loves the rush he gets from the sport he adores.
Getting on the gate, concentration, you're on the track by yourself. It's all you or nothing.
The top rider on the continent has now set his sights on qualifying for the Olympic Games next year and is eager to put the sport that is dwindling in support in South Africa back on the map.
You get a lot of adrenaline rush that I love. It's the fear of not knowing what to expect once the gate drops. I mean, you could win something, you could crash, you could injure yourself. You never know what's going to happen.
The South African champion suffered a serious wrist injury in April this year, and Dodd admits that he thought it may have been the end of his career.
One of the biggest factors of riding is holding onto your bicycle, and when I grabbed my bike a month later, just trying to get my hand sorted and actually holding my handlebar, and it wasn't working. Myself and my family got really worried. It wasn't something that any athlete likes to feel.
The talented rider, who spends 3 months of the year in California to compete on the US BMX circuit, says the Olympic Games is something that he has always dreamed of competing in, and qualification for the event is within his grasp.
Definitely. I mean, we've got a few more events. There's one now in November, which is being held in Zimbabwe. There's a lot of points up for grabs there to help us get to Olympics. And there's about 3 or 4 events next year leading up to Olympics that are very doable. All I need to do is obviously just do well, make a quarterfinal or qualification, and I'll be on my next plan out there.
The Johannesburg resident is feeling the pressure ahead of the African Continental Championships, but he is eager to embrace the pressure and make it work for him as he closes in on booking his ticket to the Olympics.
Yeah, there's obviously a bit of added pressure. I actually put a lot of pressure on myself. Obviously, the biggest thing is to do it for yourself. A lot of people, they would like me to go, and I would also love to go. So it does add a bit of pressure with people around the track. And but it obviously gives me that drive just to carry on pushing on, and I'm not just doing it for myself, but I'm doing it for a lot of people as well.
Kyle Dodd is Africa's #1 BMX rider. He's within touching distance of qualification for the Olympic Games. He's bounced back from a near career-ending wrist injury to win the South African Championships for a 3rd time. He now heads to Zimbabwe for the African Continental Championships in search of valuable points that will ensure he qualifies for Rio next year. CS du Plessis, CCTV, Johannesburg.
Tunisia recently organized a tri-nation competition that attracted boxers from Libya and Algeria. Now, for the mostly Arab population of the north, Arab boxing style is almost entirely different from the noble art as we know it.
Arab boxing is similar to Muay Thai in that it's characterized by the combined use of fists, elbows, knees and shins to score punches. It's also similar to kickboxing, but there are different ways to play it. The boxer can use his hands, his legs and his heads, although Arab boxing expert Ali Boumez says it's still very different from other disciplines.
First of all, Arab boxing is from our Arab heritage. It is old and goes back 14 centuries. It's our ancestors' sport and we should preserve it. It is 180 degrees different from kickboxing, K1 or Muay Thai. It has its own style, not like any other sport, and thank God it's getting popular.
The Federation is hoping to promote this sport and oversee the development among all 22 member nations affiliated to the Union of Arab National Olympic Committees.
We had some martial arts sports in Libya, but now we try to promote Arab boxing. We will keep in touch with our brothers in Tunisia, Algeria and Morocco, and I do hope that this sport becomes more popular in the whole Arab world.
Algeria dominated this championship in the Tunisian capital, followed by Tunisia and Libya in third place.
I won, but I felt that my opponent was in top shape. He was well prepared. We also prepared well, and God helped me, and I won. So I hope I'll prepare for another Maghreb championship in Morocco.
The next round will be held in December in Dubai. Sadiq Shaban, CCTV.
Well, finally, Nigeria's Super Falcons maintained their position as Africa's best-ranked female team despite a recent poor run of form, which saw them fail to medal at the All-Africa Games. Here now is a look at Africa's best 5 women's football teams in the FIFA rankings in our Matchpoint Top 5 segment. At number 5 is Verapau's South Africa. The Banyana took their chance and sealed their ticket to the Olympic Games in Rio when they faced and won against Equatorial Guinea in Bata. The South Africans dropped 2 places in the last ranking and are now 5th on the continent and will be greatly buoyed by their place at next summer's Games. 4th and still unmoved in Africa is Ghana. The Black Queens have been embroiled in a bitter payment saga over unpaid dues, but the team is fresh off victory at the All-Africa Games. They won 1-0 against Cameroon in the women's football final in Congo-Brazzaville last month, but staying 4th in Africa and 52nd globally. The team that stood in South Africa's way, Equatorial Guinea, are next on our list. The Central Africans made the best improvement in the last rankings, jumping up 5 places to 50th in the world. This is the team's best ranking to date since they entered FIFA's ranking system in 2006. Now dropping 2 slots is Cameroon, who feature at number 2 on our list. Coach Ngachu Eno's side were the best movers in the last ranking this July at 43rd globally, but slipped to 45th this time around. The team progressed to the round of 16 at this summer's Women's World Cup in Canada, where they eventually lost to China. And the best-ranked African team in the FIFA rankings is Nigeria. The Super Falcons suffered a poor run at the World Cup, finishing bottom of their group and lost the bronze medal match at the All-Africa Games to drop 9 positions. However, the 9-time CAF Women's Championship winners remain top of the continent despite dropping to their lowest ranking of 38 since they were first ranked in 2003. Well, that does it for this week's edition of Matchpoint. Remember, we'd love to hear your feedback. You can send it to matchpoint@cctv.com. That's our email address. Or visit our Facebook page and leave a comment, CCTV Africa. Or stay in touch on Twitter. The handle, as always, is CCTV News Africa. I'm Mahia Mutwa. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.